Okay, hello everyone. My name is Elizabeth Gessel and I'm the Director of Public Programs here at the Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco. MOAD is a contemporary art museum and our exhibitions and programming inspire learning through the global lens of the African diaspora. As we begin, we want to acknowledge the spaces we are occupying. Though we are gathered virtually, we recognize that non-native people to this land are descendants of settler occupiers or those forcefully brought to this continent. Moad occupies the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, and we pay our respects to the Ohlone people and their elders, both past and present, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We encourage all to learn more about the native lands that you occupy by visiting nativeland.ca. I welcome you to today's program, Poetics of Space, A Response in Blackness, co-presented by the OMI Black Writers Residency in partnership with Black Space Residency. Our host for today's program is Ashara Ekundayo, an independent curator, artist, cultural theologian, creative industries entrepreneur, and organizer working internationally across cultural, spiritual, civic, and social innovation spaces. If everybody could mute, please, I'd appreciate it. Ashara will be in conversation with our beautiful poets and writers. Originally from San Francisco, Tongo Eisen-Martin is a poet, movement worker, and educator. His latest book, Blood on the Fog, is a release of the City Lights Pocket Poets, and in 2020, he co-founded Black Freighter Press. He is currently San Francisco's 8th Poet Laureate. Tonya M. Foster is a poet, essayist, and Black womanist scholar. She is the author of A Swarm of Bees in High Court, and her essay for the exhibition's 2021 field guide, Time, Memory, and Living in Shotgun Houses in the South of the South City of New Orleans, expands her meditations on place and poetics. Tonya serves as the George and Judy Marcus Endowed Chair in Poetry at San Francisco State University. Natalia Molebatsi is a Pan-African queer feminist poet, writer, and performer. She is the author of 2 poetry collections, Sardo Dance and Elephant Woman Song. Natalia has performed and facilitated creative writing workshops in over 15 countries on 5 continents. She is currently a PhD student in performance studies at Northwestern University. And you can find more extensive bios on all of today's guests on MOAD's website, and I'll put a link to that in the chat. Please join me now in welcoming Ashara, Tongo, Tonya, and Natalia.
Greetings, friends. Peace, everyone. Just want to ask you again to please put your laptop on mute because we hear the echo, and it just gets a little messy if your laptop or your phone is not on mute. So please try to find the mute button for it. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Museum of African Diaspora, for hosting this forum tonight in collaboration with Artists as First Responder. Our 6-point platform uplifts social and creative art practices through exhibition, site-specific and site-responsive ceremony, mutual aid and artist grants.
What would you?
No. Publishing and printing, artist residencies, and public forums. So you can learn more about this work at artistasfirstresponder.com. Tonight's event sits at the intersection of our public forums and our artist residencies where they meet. Additionally, our OMI Arts Black Writers Residency and Poets in Residence project is a partnership between Artists as First Responder and Black Space Residency, both located in San Francisco in the historic Dogpatch neighborhood at the Minnesota Street Project. 2 of tonight's poets, Dr. Tonya M. Foster and Tongo Eisen-Martin, are alumni of the residency. Our current poet in residence is Ra Malika Imhotep, who will soon be Dr. Imhotep. And our incoming writer and final writer for the project is Reverend Marvin K. White. Our sister, Natalia Molebatsi, is a visiting poet, having been here in and out of our creative spaces in the Bay Area for the past 4 years. Greetings, everyone. Please put your phone on your laptop on mute for us. So it's my honor to welcome you to our 420 event. Poetics for Space, A Response in Blackness. Speaking of 420, it is set aside today that April 20th is the first day that Harriet Tubman started taking passengers on the Underground Railroad in 1853. So this is a day of remembrance, and all of the poetry tonight is dedicated to our revered ancestor, Harriet Tubman. So we're gonna pour some out for her and light some up for her. Yeah, that's our 420 event. So last few housekeeping things. Tonight's cipher is totally unscripted and uncensored. 2, you are invited and encouraged to chat us up. Use the chat for questions or signify or whatnot. 3, the closed captioning and transcript is on. If you need that, please feel free to turn it on and it will scroll for you. And with that said, we're going to open with a poem. I am not done yet. As possible as yeast, as imminent as bread, a collection of safe habits, a collection of cares, less certain than I seem, more certain than I was, a changed changer. I continue to continue what I have been most of my lives is where I'm going. Lucille Clifton. Tanya, can you read for us now? You're on mute.
Okay, I can. Thank you, Elizabeth and Ashara, for the welcome. It's funny, I've been thinking about the idea of space, and I teach a class called the Poetics of Place, Poetics of Space. I kind of riff on the, God, my brain is freezing, but of, there's an architect, a poet who kind of wrote about phenomenology and space and architecture. And right now, I can't call him up, which is funny. But I'm thinking a lot about how we make space for each other. I was really grateful when Erica Demon invited me to Black Space Residency, the opportunity as a poet to be in a space where I can make art. And it's through Black Space Residency that I met Ashara. But it's really this, I've been thinking about ways that people have made space for me to make work, that there's so many ways we kind of hold space for what's lost. One of the things I discovered during my time or rediscovered, I should say, during my brief period as a poet in residence there, was that I have videotape of Toni Morrison, Amiri Baraka, Yusuf Kominaka, a host of people after Katrina had devastated the south of the states. And they were there holding space for this city that they all knew. So I just wanted to start with that. The poem I have, this is a poem written in conversation with the work of Walter Hood, landscape architect. And I'm fascinated by how he works and writes. This is called Hood Hauntings, a poem in progress. At this hour, standing here among you on this bit of earth that is our momentary lot, I want to say that the self is not to a single body bound. Earth is, after all, a planetary constellation pressing past our cautiously corralling calculations. I want to say that the self is not to a single body bound. The tender ways she holds her lover's scarf tells us everything she won't say about his touch, about her quiet wanting. I want to say that the self is not to a single body bound. And the gentle way the bearded addict folds his lanky arms across his torso, ashen, is a semaphore for what we cannot hold. I want to say that the self is not to a single body bound. The doubter, situated as he is at road forks and rivers, dreams in circuits of certainty that can only short circuit one such as she, as he. I want to say that the self is not to a single body bound, and the optimist has never seen the schist for the moss, and the pessimist refuses to see the sky beyond the mind, and refuses to see that was is not always, and that is not will be. I want to say that the self is not to a single body bound, and the loner who knows this cries to herself, wrought of words and worries. She hunkers down with her arms full of absences more bearable than the gregariousness of neighbors. What is an I without you or them? Say, I want. Therefore, to say that the self is not to a singular body bound is to dream in real time, time. Talk is a cosmic conjuring of past the metal fences, past the clipped and cultivated lawns, past today's neighborhood congregants, past the omnipresent past. There's no way of filtering out. To say that the self is not to a singular body bound is to make space for the girl, become lover, become mother, who breathes for a time for another, is to embrace that each I is only in the company of we, even if only an idea of we. And myself is not a single body, is not a body singularly situated among the stars, among things, among thoughts, among words, among syllables, among shopping carts, among breaths and boxes. Myself is not by my body's boundaries bound. In the thicket we are. I am because we are. And we are mostly spirit, salve and machete.
To be making a decision of whether or not what they're doing is too much or not.
Thank you.
That's my cousin eulogized now in literary history. Wasn't pretty, this effect on my eternal soul. I tried to cry on the side facing a sink full of alcohol. Fine flowers of struggle, that color spectrum, the cousin who was dead if you brace yourself. It's hard to write without my friend. No Malcolm positions on East Coast warfare, my friend in the audience with the Earth's coming mood, mainland jazz, the organizing is all over me. Let me divine you the Lenox Avenue of the future. The river just keeps riding freights town to town, violent revolution in this very year. Open your paper to us, rulers of the night train, your humble dishwashers who live to hum the details, to look into the future like a gentle person. 3/5 of a typewriter. Do some math with me here in the absence of confidence, the luxuries of a paranoia that you can finish later. My friend died yesterday. Like belated parenting, we haunt each other in quick bursts now. Sample the drug, wrestle the angel, no depth of setting, hiding behind the hordes because I'm in the train business. You don't need a ticket for a winter that only happened here. Which dollar deserves my neck? Thinking about you is like sharing a ghost with half the city's afterlife. Thinking about you centers us. I'm just a small man in a basement window, chronicling material conditions, boiling water next to a change in the course of poor people's consciousness. I cannot impress you with the names of guns. Another city ends, we hear the fire out. You know, I never really did like the car they found me in. Imagine what defines a creature, where remnants of concrete put none of the world down except slabs of a deadbeat nationalism or a bloodline making the news again. True, I have an absence of style. Just a doorstep moving, dead body to dead body. A San Francisco police chief says, yes, you poets make points, but they're all silly. Police chief sewing a mouth onto a mouth, police chief looking straight through the poet. Flesh market both sides of the levee, changing plans both sides of the nonviolence on no earth, just an earth character. His subordinate says, awkward basketball moves look good on you, sir. Yes, we are everywhere, sir. Yes, unfortunately for now, white people only have Black history. We will slide the wallpaper right into their cereal bowl, sir. Surveil the shuffle. I'm a beggar, and all of this day is too easy. I want to see all the phases of a wall. Every age it goes through. It's humanity. It's environmental racism. We call this the ordeal blues. Now crawl to the piano seat and make a blanket for yourself. Paint scenes of a child dancing up to the court appearance and leaving an adult, but not for home. Atlantic Ocean charts mixed in with parole papers. Mainstream funding, the ruling class only pacifism. Ruling class printing judges, fiat kangaroos. Making judges hand over fist, rapture cop packs and opposition whites all above a thorny stem. Cast plans picked out like vans for the murder show. Anglo saints addicting you to a power structure. You want me to raise a little slave, don't you? Bash his little brain in and send him to your civil rights. No pain, just a white pain. Delicate bullets in a box next to a stack of monolithic scriptures make these bullets look relevant, don't it? I remember you. Everywhere you lay your head is the capital of the South, the posture you introduce to that fence, the fence you introduce to political theory. If you shred my dreams, son, I will tack you to gun smoke. The suburbs are finally offended. This will be a meditation too.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, sir. Thank you. Natalia.
Thank you. We are God's bits of wonder. Infinite possibilities live where we have been. Welcome to the land of yes, the land of them, those who came first, the brave ones, the ones who gave slices of their dreams, to welcome you here, where dreams are molded and mounted here. I greet you in the name of beauty as evidence that someone was here. A woman said once that our lives are carriers of joy and grief, that our lives are the things that we lose, the things we find, the past and what is yet to come. She says our lives are bodies of contradictions, remembering what we lose and being the very thing that remains after the loss. We, the living, the surviving, the thriving, the enduring, the reckoning, we, the surviving, the thriving, the reckoning, we the raptured, and the desire to repair the rapture. What remains after loss? A man asks. It is we, the enduring, the resisting, the insisting beauty of we. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonya?
Thank you. So I'm torn about what to read. I had thought I might read from this essay, Time, Memory, and Living in Shotgun Houses in the south of the South City of New Orleans. There's an image by John Biggers.
Your video's not on, just so you know.
Oh, sorry, forgot about the video thing. And there's a John Biggers image that I'll try to pull up by the end called Shotguns. That's really very resonant for me of a lot of things, but I'll read some of this essay. Melpomene, melodious pomade, mellifluous potent potion, melt potentialities, paucity of portions, portend promises, promenade. 2508 Melpomene Avenue was for years the location of the shotgun home of my mother's mother. My father's mother lived across the avenue when the Melpomene Projects, which was officially known as the Gustavo Apartments, although no New Orleanian called the projects by its government name. Melpomene, New Orleanians pronounce it with a long O sound as in old. The final syllable is a lean stress syllable in which the E is long as in mean. Years after I left the city I know as home, I learned that the conventional and standardized pronunciation of the name of this Greek muse of tragedy is Melpomene, a word that includes 4 syllables instead of Nolan's 3. Mel as in melodious, pa or with an O as in body, meh with an E that sounds like the I in with or which, and a concluding long stress syllable, ni, with an E as in we or free. The muse of tragedy's name means to sing. She is also known as the muse of the chorus. Melpomene sits at the juncture of meaning and naming. She signals the deep entanglements of the miseries of tragedy and the majesty of music. She embodies joy and grief. That a significant portion of Melpomene Avenue will later be renamed Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is resonant with the implications of the semiotic juncture that is Melpomene. King's sonorous voice signifies possibilities of movement, but also how movement may be violently interrupted, how possibility may be violently muted. To listen closely, which is an important part of the poet's shtick, is not so much to sing as it is to reach after song, to reach after the rhythmic worm working through the ear, which is a burrow in the mind, that space of the psychological and affective. This space holds sonic and visual and gestural and syntactic residue from what has come before, and is part of the constellation of what is, at the same time that it portends what may follow. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
First, I should have apologized to the souls of the house because I'm wearing the cheekbones of the mask only. like a pill bottle whose name is yours, name tagged on the side of a factory of risk. I mean, teeth of the mask now. Back of the head of the mask now. A new phase of anti-anthropomorphism fending for real faces. Stuck with one of those cultures that believes I chose this family. I mean, I'm not creative, just the silliest of the revolutionaries. My blood drying on my only jacket. The police state psychic middlemen evangelizing for the creation of an unmasses, an unmedgar, blood of a lamb less racialized or awesome prison sentence. Right angle made between a point on a Louisiana plantation and a 5-year-old's rubber ball 3 feet high and falling like a deportee plane. To complete my interpretation of garden variety genocide, I'm small talk about loving your enemies a little more realistically about paper tigers and also gold. I need my left hand back. Broke my neck on a piano key, found paradise in a fist fight. Maybe I should check into the Cuban line. Watching the universe last metronome, some call black Jacobins, and just wait. These religions will start resigning in a decade or two. Some colorfully, some transactionally in the cotton gothic society class betrayal gone glassless. I mean, ironically, my window started fogging over too as I was trying to figure out which Haiti would get me through the winter, which poem houses souls, which socialist breakthroughs like taking 10 steps back, then finally trying stillness, like introducing Gabriel Prosser to Thelonious Monk. I remember childhood, remember the word childhood being a beginning, scribbling on an amazing grace. I rented this body from some circumference of slavery. Remember being kicked out the Midwest, strange fruit theater, lithium and circuses, like-minded stomachs, the ruling class blessing their blank checks with levy phone, with opioid tea, sentient dollar bills yelling to each other, pocket to pocket. Cello stands in the precinct for accompanying counter-revolutionaries. My mother raised me with a simple pain. A poet loses his mind. Like the room has weather, or first girlfriend gravity. Difference between me and you is the madness wants me forever. A pair of apartments defining both my family and political composure. Books behind my back, bail money paved into the streets, playing euphoria, cliche. Bracing for the medicine's recoil, sharing a dirty deli sandwich with my friends, black Jacobins, underground topography of a grandmother's hands, psychology of the mask now, teeth of the mask again. Societies wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. Citizen testaments bent on offering me a nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes, like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanence turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is a dangerous twin. Black August to the mountaintop balcony on my bedroom floor. You know, they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you in your broken neck from their foolish euphoria. From the loyalty oath of their great superstitions, loyalty oath of their agrarian reform, I returned to my mother completely disrespected for peeling the heat off of purgatory. They kill poets like me. Walk me away from my poems, never to be heard from again in this vile industrial complex of bloodlines picked over, picked through, a sport and spiritual death of your devil at least half made. Police become a pretty word. I'm reading a lynch mob shoestring like they were tea leaves, teaching you how to write about cities. It's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against your chump chains, you're a chump to be mocked even with a gun in your car. A cubit of needlework spelled tune for the proletariat, the relapse ministry. Talented people curled up in a fetal position next to a diamond dime. Just another service day in the theatrics of tea house fascism. And a bouquet of surveillance cameras in the poverty of God, new blue eyes, corpses of water, newly potted presidency of one big shiny coin, if you ask, an animated capitalism, another non-literal voice, killing his wife, freedom, the deification of hyphens, medicine bread and picture shows, great protesters in LA, guests of our ink, drop kicking roses in the graveyard. DC Mink like a stone torn in half, the pen advances despite CIA guideposts, despite non-African past and futures, a metaphorical but not surreal day in the horn red life. Horn player, improvising king, like a radio prize fight featuring Shango himself. A real hand sweeps the land of racism. Man, I return to the ground. Man, I'll make progress with the gun. On our mother Emmanuel, they put on music that evening, a swinging type body language for you to drink with fermented $5 bills for your body language, some applause, my past stomach line, and neither a good thing nor a bad thing like being psychic on the way to a lethal injection. It'll sit you down with Lady Day. Lady Day leading youth who surrendered their souls to Africa too soon. Poly thought floating in the cup of water, she saved me. Accessing my stomach, accessing the love of the American lynched. That coat sleeves wooden avalanche into the wrist. Our mother Emmanuel avalanche into the sharp keys. Pain, the deal you make with pain. Piano makes sense for them. Laying hands on the world gradually. Addressing the bending necks on the streets of the north. Travelers sailing in pain, repeating pain in the north. 10 trigger fingers on that piano if harmony would have me. Putting 100 fights on every direction off it. Lady Day, leaning on trees again. Recruiting the countryside itself, saying, lay your plan on this lightning. Make your poems a corner pocket of men. I've greeted the blues itself. America may clean my dead body, but will never include me. There goes the poet. Killing without killing. Never mind this painting of your language. May I be a meaningful lynching. A crow's passing, good and dead by the afternoon.
Welcome to the morning of new meaning, where chapter comes open. Chapter comes close to the edge where we carve a center, some place to begin from. Every day we are coming out of some little place, coming out from places of smiling hatred, going into spaces known as everywhere. We at the front lines, we tend to lean towards the candlelit heads of men and mountain-like knowings of women who will ask you. Someone will ask you for droplets of your dreams. Someone will ask you, where do you receive your gifts and how do you give them back? Someone past the flattery of these words, half past history and the other side of time, half past the mountain known as a language, half past how far we have come and how far we are yet to go. Someone will ask you, where do you receive your gifts and how do you give them back? You, traveler, warrior, journeyman, troubled, warrior, journey woman, tired, but trying into the limitless skies in pursuit of roots and truth, in pursuit of the other side. Hey, journey woman, hey, what are your foundations? I too am searching for my formulations. I am searching. And if any of you traveler, warrior, journey people ever get to the other side, tell them that we were made of flesh and the blues. Tell them that we were woven into flesh and loss and lies many times. Promises. Tell them that we were woven into flesh and long tapestries who hold us up when we can't uphold ourselves. Tell them, go ahead, tell them that we were made of flesh and love. I don't know if I still have time to read another one. I want to read a poem from New Daughters of Africa, edited by Margaret Busby. And this one is called The Mending Season. You are a song singing in the deepest voice of my people, a lullaby cusping tears, an Amandla song to every child of the storm. Someone said that you are the wind beneath the broken wing of my people. Another one said that women like you and you are the mending season of our aching. Women like you who give and give and give their last breath to ignite fires called revolution, even when they force-fed you the rules of silence. You fought for your story to be told in the season of your voice, and inside your body reside the melodies of the dead who never die, the melodies of our people. You with an uncontainable wail that grew louder and larger than any tight grip of oppression. You with words that forced open the doors of a world that was never, that will never be ready for our kind. It's time now for moon to night you with your secret conversations and moments of endearment. The same moon that will welcome you on an orbit of Black magic woman wonderment. You will let this world know that you loved her more. You love her more than she loves you. How do I thank you ever for your pain, your banned and jailed and unacknowledged dreams? The same dreams that are gifts to my bag of memory through which I will craft songs for tomorrow's healing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, before we continue into this reading, just deep gratitude for all of the words, for all of the poetry and prose that has been offered. I want to place into this circle the conversation of being in residence, of being at home. You know, what that means to have home and to have space. And for those who make space with our words, with our visual art, our bodies, our movement, those of us who make space, the question right now is, what does it mean to be intentional about Black space? What does it mean to be intentional and not only unapologetic, but unequivocal? Like, this is what it is, the epitome and what is necessary for us right now as many people are struggling to find residence and residency. So before we continue, I'd like to get some reflections from you, Tongo and Natalia and Tonya, around what does Black space look like in this current eco-political environment right now, as you continue to be writers and educators and organizers and students of the environment. Tonya, maybe you can talk about it from your perspective of having been and being poet in residence, artist in residence in various situations in museums, including the Museum of the African Diaspora and other spaces.
Well, I was thinking about the conflation of home and being in residence.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think of being in residence as being at home. I think of it actually as being a guest, being a visitor. And that there's something about I have a dear friend who has an incredible way of welcoming people into his home and making them feel like this is their home, at least for the time that they're there. And maybe that's the way that a residency may be like home. or like a home. It's a place where you kind of connect. I mean, I'm working through, I don't feel like I have a clear answer, except that each of the residencies, it was at the Headlands that I sort of encountered something that changed. Just having space to lay out my work changed how I imagine working, right? Having a studio space dedicated to making work made a very big difference for me in terms of thinking about scale, and even scale in my writing. I think Black space residency and the OMI residency were opportunities for me to sit among the sort of tools of visual artists. And that was very helpful because I've long been a person writing in response to visual mediums. I taught creative writing workshops at museums, edited a book on teaching creative writing through visual art. I'm often inspired by and provoked by the material world and the visual world. So residencies have meant a space in which to try out things in different ways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can appreciate that, being a guest. And hopefully being a good guest.
And hopefully being a good guest, yeah.
I mean, one of the beautiful things about the Black Space Residency and OMI Poet in Residency collaboration is that there are two studios. And so there's a visual artist in residence and a Black writer in residence who have the opportunity to be in communion, conversation with each other if they choose. But there's also all of the resources that are presented and the opportunity to learn from other artists who are gifting their time and expertise to the writer, if they so choose. And so what I'm hoping, we can come to is some place where the writer has actual time to actually not step away from the writing, but expand the writing, expound on what is being written.
I am so with you that, I mean, I don't want to whine at all. And yet that's the thing that, if anything saddens me, as one of the things that saddens me is that I wasn't in residence or there all the time as much as humanly possible at that time. And that I didn't have a way to do it because I was also teaching and I'm carless in the Bay Area, which is not a smart move. And there was COVID and those things. But I think you're right. The thing of having the time to really engage, I would have loved to have learned to do a little pottery or a little bit of woodworking.
I think, so this is part of what it means to have a pilot project. Erica Demon is co-founder of Black Space Residency. We envision this as a 2-year pilot project. And we get to learn with you all as we move along. It's like, what does it mean if the artist doesn't have a car? What does it mean to be able to travel back and forth across the bridge if they need to? What does that mean for us to, in terms of how we look for support and additional partners? So there are things that we're thinking about in terms of insisting on Black space and holding each other as closely as we can as we are all engaged in our own creative art practices and jobs and lives and loves.
But it's also beautiful. It makes me think of mutual aid societies.
That's right.
That idea of shared resources and shared access, rather than an idea of competition.
That's right.
And that's what, for me, is actually generative and is necessary in Black space to actually excavate the sort of capitalist competitions we're sort of taught are markers of how we sort of gain success. But what if we are sort of mutually making space available to each other? Then something else is possible.
Yes, and as you know, the visual world is very much fueled by competition. It's fueled by the market. And so artists who want to be art stars are like focused on their work and not focused on the collective necessarily if that's not their practice. So, you know, we're experimenting with this kind of residency that is high touch and also very personal for you. You know, you don't have to present or perform for us. And, you know, I'd like also to, Natalia, for you to speak about, you know, your work internationally. I mean, you and I met in Johannesburg. I've been to your home, you've been to my Oakland home. It's how we have talked about art and collaboration over the years across the continents and, you know, throughout the diaspora. There are many people in the Zoom room tonight with us from across the diaspora. This idea of competition and residency and generosity, that's really how I would like for us to frame this, as an abundance and generosity of space that we provide and create for each other and for ourselves.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the, you know, the conversation that I'm listening to you, between you and Tonya about, you know, the space of home. And I'm thinking about, in my language, Setswana, a resident is, we say moagi, and moagi translated into English means a builder, a creator. And so when you say, you know, we are in plural, you say baagi, and that means the residents of this area. You know, if somebody says, so where do you know, where are you from? Where do you live? Oh, I am moagi of this and this place, which means I'm a resident of this and this, of this particular place. And so it speaks entirely of a building, a co-building and a partnership, you know. And I think sometimes when we, you know, think about these languages that sometimes we forget, you actually get the meaning of what it means to be a resident, what it means to be at home. It's a space of partnership, you know. And then again, capitalism comes in and just changes the dynamic. And I don't think that there is anyone in any city, any village, who is not impacted by capitalism. And I think, especially with, you know, indigenous people, you know, meaning us who are from, you know, the continent of Africa, however way that those who were taken, those who were sold, those who remained, to kind of try and patch, you know, the loss, the trauma, the pain that continues today. All of that is linked by capitalism and exploitation. So what does that then mean when we think about being a resident? And also a resident is in Setswana again, is also linked to a person who moves, because when you build, you don't only build for yourself in this particular place. So it's about building here and there, and it just brings me to your next question about working in different spaces, you know, in South Africa, in the US, in the UK, and, you know, everywhere. And what's fascinating about all these spaces that I've worked and co-built with people is that we really are everywhere as Black people. There is no place where you will not find us, whether it's China or Japan or India or Peru. We just are there, you know, and I've always felt this sense of co-building and partnership. And I mean, just a final word, the kind of work that you are doing is really not even about explaining, but it's about the experience, you know, of how you build spaces, you know, and you start to see people as the institutions themselves. You know, we think about institutions as these colonial concepts, but people themselves are the institution that, you know, that just go beyond these buildings and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm over here agreeing with you on that. People run institutions, people maintain institutions, and what mindsets are at play in our inner environment show up in our outer environment. If we are a person who is, say, conflict avoidant, then if that's not how they are comfortable dealing with the conflict of themselves, that will show up how they interact with people around them. I want to talk, Tongo, with you about the importance, or maybe just the idea of Black spaces as scaffolding for Black futurity. This, and inside of that, how do we build in spaces regarding care and love and compassion for ourselves, these principles of care inside of this scaffolding of our future being?
Yeah, man. You know, I can't get that little kid's experience out of my mind in Syracuse, New York. I don't know if everybody saw the police handling this little Black child. Probably was, they say he was 8 years old. You know, he's just terrified, being handled like an adult. Or not even being handled like an adult non-human, you know? And so, and it reminded me actually that I actually, when I was about 9 or something like that, had the exact same experience, only me and my younger brother, who was even smaller than me, were accused of, we got hemmed up by police for armed robbery, you know, that had been, you know, that we fit some kind of description, even though I might have weighed about 80 pounds. And my brother was even smaller. They couldn't even fit the little handcuffs over his wrist, right? So, you know, it's almost like when you see what's coming here, or what's arriving, what's been arriving now, this consolidation of that of a neo-Confederate tendency, this right wing, really almost like it's like almost like they want to return to the old colonialism. So I couldn't even call it a neo, and it's like retro colonialism that masses of people are trying to inaugurate. Think about Black space, it has to be a preparatory space, because and forgive my forgive my pain and rambling, but Robin Ketley has a good book. Oh man, Race Rebels, and he in a one of his kind of brilliant approaches to empire history here is that kind of political violence as it's really institutionalized, or as it was institutionalized after or coming kind of out of a Jim Crow, or as Jim Crow is evolving, is a contest for public space. So it's like, okay, you can be whoever, well, you can sort of be who you want, but when you enter any of these public spaces, you're going to accept our absolute power. That when I see a white, either a surrogate of the white power structure, or a member, or white people, whoever, I'm supposed to be shaking. My whole psyche is supposed to be inhibited. This is what they're trying to reinforce. And even what civilians seem to gleefully want to join in as well. As some of y'all know, my cousin was just killed by white supremacists, right? A few months ago. So Emory Douglas said that the ghetto is the gallery. Emory Douglas, who was one of the original Black Panthers and created all that artwork that that we know. He said the ghetto is it also has to be the residency then. So when I think about what we're doing, it has to be getting to that expansion as quickly as possible. I believe it's a groovy, the seed, right? This idea of kind of just, take another cocoon, here, have another cocoon, build yourself, build something that you can bring to your people, and that's almost that's a power, or a space of power. That's the square we should all be living on, right? That this surrounding should be to help me expand myself. That's really should be a human right. Your surroundings should just help you expand yourself, assist in expanding yourself. So I'm with it. You know what I mean? I just think we're out of time. And so that's, in these conversations about where this thing can go, it has to be tied to taking our experience and figuring out how to provide it to to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right on, thank you. Your time as poet in residence at the space was spent traveling back and forth in support of your family. But also what was emerging was this film that you did on the 1919 Red Summer. Is that right?
Yeah.
We have I want to, Elizabeth, if you could show the trailer to the film, and Tongo, you want to load it up and tell us what's happening, or you want to talk afterward?
Yeah, I could. I don't know. I don't know the best way to go about these types of introductions. I guess a quick little. I give a quick little crash course. So in 1919, all over the United States, they called them race riots, but they were really just white people mobbing up and killing as many black people as they could get their hands on, you know. And so we're familiar with some of these, like Tulsa, you know, we've seen the movie Rosewood, you know. Well, in Elaine, Arkansas, actually at the end of the Red Summer, black sharecroppers tried to unionize, and they were, you know, basically met with a massacre. There's so many. It actually, I mean, it might be the most. I mean, you know, I think the official count was somewhere around 300, but the people's account said thousands actually were murdered. And what was, you know, very kind of like what's instructive about that in the killing was that there was a point actually when we started to successfully repel these white murderers, because you had these, you know, black veterans of World War I who knew how to organize a quick military defense. And so what happens is that they call for federal troops. And instead of the federal troops squashing the whole situation, they basically took over the massacre. And now we're dealing with federal machine guns mowing us down. And when I went down there to Elaine, Arkansas, what struck me the most, you see, I had you know, I got the story first, the history and all this is what I read first. And my mind had painted a picture of more of a kind of even a guerrilla warfare field. But when I got down, it's just all this just open space, barely any trees. So it wasn't even like people were coming. It was really a massacre, coming to massacre, and successfully massacred a lot of people. So it, you know, I co-wrote and narrated this documentary on Elaine. The title, "We Have Just Begun," actually comes from what was the password that the sharecroppers would say at the kind of secret meeting, right? You come up and you say, "We just begun," and enter the organizing meetings.
Let's watch the trailer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of prejudice in this town.
As far as I can see it, it hasn't changed one bit.
The main street of Elaine is divided.
Black on one side and white on the other side. It's just where we at.
People are afraid to talk today about the Elaine race riot.
Because they feel like history might repeat itself.
My great-grandfather, Ed Coleman, and a group of others just wanted something fair wage for the crops that they brought in.
See, them boys came back here to Phillips County, and they came back here trying to help they people get a better position economically, and they murdered them for that.
And it's not about the past, it's about now.
This ain't no damn game. They murdered these people, and they still murdering. And they'd murder us right now if they knew what we was up in here up to.
The land needs to be healed, understanding what we've been through. The history of Elam, the suffering, might enable us to move forward.
You can't walk out there and walk through this stuff and don't feel it. You'll hear those spirits whispering through the wind. All of these things are gonna be paid for. They gotta be paid for. And listen, ain't none of us gonna be able to sit this one out.
Thank you. When will we be able to see the film, Tongo?
So, man, thanks to the generous donations, we got all the money we needed for post-production work. So it should be done for the oh man, I'm so out of pocket. I'm blanking on the September, the anniversary of the massacre. Yeah, and it's been we've been working on this thing for years, and I feel bad because it's partially my fault that it took so long, because some of my writing I'm not gonna say scared away producers, but they were basically like, I'm not raising any more money for this communist propaganda. You know what I'm
Okay.
So, but luckily the people, you know, the people got us to the finish line on the back end. So we actually, there might be a kind of a preview at this Juneteenth film festival.
Okay.
But
in East Oakland.
Yeah, but if not, then definitely September.
Thank you. I know that some folks in the chat are asking when they can see the film. Any reflections?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So many things in terms of what you said, Tongo. I mean, you brought us someplace where we are, actually, demanded that we be wholly present to what is. Thank you. You know, thank you. Wow.
Thank you.
So I'm supposed to read after? Supposed to read.
There's a request in the chat. Someone's requested read Damaged Heritage
by J. Chester Johnson. Somebody want to read that?
Somebody in the room have that to read? While you find it, Natalia, can you talk a little bit about this work, this new anthology, your newest published piece in the collection of womanist voices that are also about space, about rage?
Yeah. All of it, about space, about rage, about building community. You know, that whole thing around competition is just totally negated by works like, or disrupted, or kind of, you know, we're trying to say or insist on building spaces, gatherings. So this book is called Wild Imperfections, and it is an anthology of womanist poems. And the dream really was to create a truly Pan-African feminist space where we can reach one another? How do we create this gathering in book form that we can take with us, that future people can take, you know, just also curating this this archive of the future, because these type of things, they outlive us. I mean, I'm also looking at a book that I contributed to, a lot of us contributed to, New Daughters of Africa. And I think in part, my creating Wild Imperfections was inspired also by Margaret Busby's timeless, long time work of creating spaces for, you know, Black women, for queer women or queer people to be in gathering and to kind of have conversations. So this book, there are 40 poets, and the foreword is done by Bernardine Evaristo. There are poets from South Africa, the US, Brazil, Scotland, Canada, Sierra Leone, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominican Republic, Somalia, Haiti, that whole idea about us being everywhere. Jamaica and Zimbabwe, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Guyana, and the poets include people that we know who are iconic, and also people who are going into that iconicity because they're young and they're still creating their own work. The people who are in this book are so generous with their work. When I presented the dream to want to be in partnership, in residence, right? In together and create the space. Diana Ferris, Nikki Giovanni, Miriam Alves, Makosa Zanataba. I mean, the list is long. So when people get the book, you know, Warsan Shire, Anna Maureen Lara, Nobisi Philip, Habiba Badurun, Safia El Hilo, Momtaza Mary.
You to read something?
Yeah, so you want me to okay, so that's a testament of worldwide a network of Black women writers who interconnect on multiple levels, a multi-generational, cross-cultural anthology, which, you know, we hope that it touches us gently in this anti-Black world, in this harsh, rough world. I'm going to I'll read a poem of mine, and if there's time, I'll read another person's poem in the collection. So this one is called Truth. Some people will watch you burn. Others will save you, teach you how to save you, stand in the fire with you, stand for you, burn with you, burn for you. Others will burn you, school you in the art of burning things. Some people will be water, pouring, pouring, pouring to hush the burning. And then I want to move from here and travel to the Dominican Republic. Anna Maureen Lara, who is a professor of women and gender studies, in Oregon. And I love this poem because I believe it centers, or it connects all that we are about in this book, and it's called Call. Call on your ancestors, the ones who dug out trenches in the forest, waiting for the setting sun, a place to hide, a place of warmth. Call on your ancestors, the ones who carried corn seeds, meal in wormwood leaves and folded cloth, through deserts and mountains, sun-broken heat, foot-breaking snow. Call on your ancestors, the ones who left too soon in gas chambers along the southeastern trails under the cow whip and crossing the great blue waters. Call on your ancestors, those who escaped the famines, the wars, exile, the pogroms, Napalm, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Call on your ancestors, those who could not escape, the ones who knew Aleppo and Baghdad and Kabul, the ones who knew the taste of manna and flatbread and crusades. Call on your ancestors, be unafraid to call on the iron makers, the priests, the farmers, the weavers. You know the ones who peer at you from the clouds and from water, who grew up from the soil and descended from the stars. Call on your ancestors, the ones who danced drunk at parties and got up the next day just fine. The ones who saved you a meal, the ones who left to join the others. Call on your ancestors, the ones who watched the ships arrive at dusk, the ones who watched close and from a distance, the ones who poisoned the oats and buried the bodies. Call on your ancestors, the ones who made love just for love's sake, the nuns and singers, the clowns and diviners, the conjurers too. Call on your ancestors, the ones who have been waiting for you, for you, for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, poet.
I'm going to read from A Swarm of Bees in High Court, which is a long poem about Harlem. And it's a kind of biography of a place. You'd think a woman would know this, she thinks. This thought, a squirrel on a lawn. You think a woman, there are thoughts of other women, more squirrels. Her mother, I'd hate you to miss sex when she wanted to be a nun. Her mother, I'd like to hear this. What do you know about a man? When she wrote home about her lover whose mother taught her to knit. When she wrote home about knitting, she was still girl incognizant, still the girl writing, we are the faces we wear in flashback, still the girl with the face like a movie screen, who knit skull caps with yarn red as cartoon blood, as red as mammy two shoes, matchstick heads, yarn red as cartoon lips and tongues, red as bandanas and pomegranates, red as blood butterflied across the seat and white of summer culottes. Red as blood that says woman, maybe mother, says watch and count. Red as velvety cake she thought and ate over 2 months, morning times. Red as velveteen curtains she wanted to drape around this moment. Red as morning, as bluster, as bluff, as the flat of offering plates. Red as morning, as unheeded signal to stop, as sliced rare meat. Red as cherry now and laters, as pickled pig's lips, as bruised knuckles. Red as cherry blow pops, as big red gum, as loitering before sleep. Red as distant red hook bees drunk on cherry fungicide cocktails. Red as distant space mapped, bought, and belonging to brutish say so. Red as the administration of districts and blocked off blocks. Red as the administration of want, as the red-handed wave so long. Red as red squirrels, as maples, as districts set for and lit with wanting. Red as red squirrels, North American, Eurasian, native, migrant, red as red as red, ass red as a baboon's ass is red. Come on, stop. Red as the seeping of coulda, woulda, you know. Red as subjunctive being the butt of taken and took down. Red as subjecting beings becoming to merchandising lines and limits. A red letter day in the red light district of insomniac night. A red letter day for seeing red scare the shit out of reason. Red as compass, gauge, as stripe, as strike, as undertone of home. Red as compass, gauge of light cycling the edges of 620 to 740 nanometers. Red as was here, as becoming not here. Red as note and gone and not. Thank you.
Thank you.
I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm. Ricochet sewage near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti. I'm in the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part. My body brings down the Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest poster, by the way. Time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You're witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It is only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. A neighborhood making a lot of fuss over its demise, a new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder. The figment of village, a new noose to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavery some time, didn't it? The tangent screeches of military bolts and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. And sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque peach plastic and bold action audiences. The Medgar Evers second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondle news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialisms. Simple policing versus structural frenzies. Elementary school script versus even whiter white spectrums. Artless bleeding and a challenge of watching civilians think. Terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads in the arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of Family Crest, Modern Fans Award, with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt, and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus. I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. I talk facing away from the dead. They replace me with the change in my pocket. Penny that's yet to be invented. They say, you have to know how to cut a throat on the way to cutting a throat. After sleeping on a mattress made from 2 garbage bags of clothes, I became content with the small gestures of plantation fires. I mean, Playing with couch ashes, I realized how weird the universe was. It exists in so many places, so many random things. It interrupts me while I'm trying to dream. Like your clay correspondence, Lord. To be transparent, I have 20 books next to a bullet, like an old man giving advice at the beginning of a revolution. I've really done it, Lord. Explored the mumbles of my mind, explored what's naturally there, and I found no brainwashing. I found Africa, Lord. I have a future. It takes place in the diasporic South. I have morning possession. Modern militancy, windows to the South. I will walk on a missile for food. I guess you will not want flowers for a few years, Lord. Will I be tied face to face with the country I murder? Merge with us, Lord. Our old metal versus a new metal. Our old metal versus a pool of meandering imperialist faces of multiculturalism of sorts. They replaced me with a comedian's chest cavity instead of a chest cavity held tight. It takes a violent middleman for me to talk to myself. Stories that travel through other people's stories. A song about a song, a hemisphere about a hemisphere. Stories that travel through a conquered poet. Hey, my mother remembers Africa, Lord. She killed on behalf of you, Lord. I wore a machete all winter and no one asked me what it meant. I read 1,000 books in front of the world. What I do is fight poems and sleep through decadent San Francisco prayer circles. Watch people play for post-working class associative services or recreations of a governor's desk, ruling class art of utility playing find a sociopathic bureaucrat. A day some white people were scared even easier. TV in a basket next to a ceramic baby wearing ceramic armor, musket progeny fantasizing through the art of the poor, their trendy latches locked before God, black art hunted down like a dog. Hand over my friends, Lord. Lord, I think I'm gonna die in a war. Unelected white people in my small house like a blues song of no spiritual effect, or a dollhouse H-bomb, or pony show near dead bodies, or apartheid weddings that go right, apartheid white people who give birth to mathematicians, the spiritual continuity of barracks and police stations, chemical interpretation of a Sunday trip to church, church smells in their pockets, a river mistaken for a talking river, no autobiography outside of small personal victories of violence and drug use, made in the image of God's trinkets, what white abolitionists confided in their children about, chemical assurances that they will switch from black artists to white artists, from black God to white God, from black worker to white worker. You know, I think about you cautiously, Lord. In the same way I think about my childhood, Lord. Foxhole Friday nights, most of life is mute. A comedian points out a planter's field to a priest, King Sugar Cane, King Cotton, King Revolutionary, the Abolish Central, containing all modes of shallow introduction, introducing an unlisted planter class speaking about fevers and balance sheets and reassuring the masses that we could figure out our fathers later. A priest took my mother lightly, Lord. Stood in front of parishioners, re-raveling fantasies about black art. Priest reading confidently before I broke him and broke his parallel. You know, after the day, I've never been a poet before. Little brother watches his big brother's friends. They leave rifles on sheltered walls. They agree with me and call it literature. It's a simple matter, this revolution thing. To really lie to no one, to keep nothing godlike, to write a poem for God.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Tonya. Thank you, Tongo, for this time, for this space, this Poetics for Space, a response in Blackness. And for our partners at the Museum of the African Diaspora, the Moad Lit series that Nia McAllister curates, and for Dr. Elizabeth Dessel for being Director of Public Programs and offering us this space for consideration during National Poetry Month on the day of April 20th, where we celebrate our ancestor Harriet Tubman. and our remembrance of freedom and liberation today. And I guess with that, and thank you to Artists as First Responder and to Black Space Residency for our generous collaboration with each other in joy and abundance. I want to turn it back over to Elizabeth to close us out. Thank you all for your practice. Thank you for writing the words. Deep appreciation.
Thank you so much, Ashara, and thank you for the magnificent reading and rich conversation with all of you poets and writers. I do want to encourage any of you, if you're in the Bay Area and you would like to come visit the museum, we are open to the public now. We have 4 beautiful exhibitions that we would love for you to come see. And if you are not in the Bay Area, please just continue to check out our virtual programs and support the museum by joining us for these types of programs. You can find out more at our website, moadsf.org. We would also love for you to fill out an online survey. We've put the link to it in the chat. We're also having an incentive. If you fill it out, we'll have a monthly raffle and we'll give away a $25 gift certificate to our Moad bookstore every month. So spend a few minutes and maybe you'll get enough money to buy one of these fabulous books. And just please consider supporting Moad in any way that works for you. Become a member, donate online. You can also text a donation to 56512, type the word Moad SF and follow the link to donate. But mostly I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight, for sharing your words and your spirits. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.